Welcome back to A Full View. On Sunday night into Monday morning, we had a very heavy rains across parts of KwaZulu-Natal thanks to a weather system called a cut-off low. And we saw unprecedented heavy rains that were reported, and those rains exceeded 200 millimeters around Margate, and all this thanks to of course, weather system called the cut-off low, which was affecting South Africa since Saturday, and it is starting to weaken tonight. Now, we are joined by Professor Engelbrecht, who is a director of the Global Institute for Change at Wits University. And we're going to be talking to him more about these cut-off laws that affect South Africa. And we are starting to see that they can also affect other parts of the world. Prof, what can you tell us about this particular system that affected KwaZulu-Natal, those heavy rains that we got? Are they normal for cut-off laws for this part of the country?
Good evening, Joel. Thank you very much for having me. Yes, what I'll say for a start is that these cut-off lows are occurring in South Africa typically in the autumn months and also in spring. So that's very interesting. It's a type of weather system that occurs during these periods in between summer and winter. That's the period, that's the time of the year that they favor. It's common for them to cause flooding in South Africa. We have about 10 cut-off lows, more or less, statistically every year, that moves across South African territory, and 2 out of 10 bring flooding. So they are really potent weather systems. They usually develop far to the south over the Southern Ocean or over the Atlantic Ocean to the west. So they bring a lot of cold air. They bring air that has the potential to become unstable when it mixes with air over the interior. And quite often they also contribute to pulling down moisture from the tropical parts of Africa southwards in some cases. So cut-off lows are important weather systems for South Africa because they are important for our rainfall, especially along the Cape South Coast. They are often important rain-producing weather, but then they always bring this risk of flooding. So what I can just say about the recent events is that, of course, the Durban floods, April 2020, that was caused by a cut-off low. In that case, the rainfall amount was at some weather stations larger than 500 millimeters of rain that was measured in 2 days. In this case, about 200 millimeters of rain occurred quite far to the east of an approaching cut-off low. So in this case, a cut-off low contributed once again some of the instability that was present in the atmosphere. But there was also important surface characteristics, including a surface low that formed. But once again, it's an autumn event. We can attribute it to a cut-off low. It's not exceptional for South Africa to get this type of event in March and in April.
Well, you just mentioned the floods in 2022 in KwaZulu-Natal. My follow-up question was actually going to refer to that. We saw those floods happened in April, and they happened in KwaZulu-Natal. And again, it was a cut-off law that was involved. So can we read something into this cut-off laws, the month of April, KwaZulu-Natal? Can we say the province is favored by these heavy rains from cut-off laws?
Well, it's quite often KwaZulu-Natal and the Eastern Cape that are affected by these cut-off lows, and they also bring flooding to the Western Cape. So the older viewers may know about the infamous Lionsburg flood. That, if I remember correctly, was back in 1981, was it 1984? I can't remember now. But that was also a cut-off low. So they do favor the southern provinces because they occur, as I've mentioned, they develop over the Southern Ocean and the Atlantic, and then sometimes they get displaced deeper into the interior as well. But of course, KwaZulu-Natal is our wettest province. And what often happens in this case is that when the cut-off low moves from the interior towards the coast, it develops a very deep surface low close to the ocean surface. We call this explosive cyclogenesis. And that Indian Ocean east of KwaZulu-Natal and the Gillis Current is such an important factor to take into consideration because there's usually lots of warm and moist air available above the Gillis Current. And that moist air then gets sucked into the KwaZulu-Natal interior and along the coast. And it really becomes a deadly mixture of air masses. And what we've seen with the Durban floods, of course, is that, as I've mentioned, rainfall at some weather stations above 500 millimeters in 2 days. And I think, as we all know, this turned out to be the most devastating flood event in South Africa's history in terms of the loss of life. So the latest unfortunate statistics now show that we lost 544 lives in April 2022 in 2 days because of the flooding.
Thank you so much, Prof, for those insights and a deeper understanding into how these cut-off flows affect South Africa, especially KwaZulu-Natal, which happens to be the wettest province in South Africa. That was Professor Engelbrecht from the Wits University.